He believed he could cheat fate by speeding up. But the mistake was not realizing that fate was already sitting in the passenger seat. At every turn, the road demanded something. With every kilometer, speed ceased to be adrenaline and became debt. This is a fictional story created purely for entertainment. But the question is real. How far would you go to win one last lap? If this story has already captivated you in the first few seconds, subscribe to the channel now. And write in the comments where you're watching from, because this road crosses the entire world. The race is about to begin. He always believed he could cheat anything that moved slower than his car. Time, fear, people, even his own past. But that night, on the dirt road torn by wind and dust, he still didn't know one simple thing. Fate doesn't chase you. It gets in the passenger seat and waits. The Subaru's engine roared like a wounded animal, turbocharged to its limit, spitting out power with every gear change. The headlights cut through the desert darkness like blades. The dashboard vibrated. The steering wheel trembled in calloused hands. Everything about him was used to speed, except his heart. The race didn't exist on the maps. There was no audience, no trophy, just broken men betting what was left of their souls on miles of open road, blind curves, and silent promises. Whoever won continued. Whoever lost disappeared. "Last call," said the distorted voice on the radio. After this, there's no turning back. He didn't answer. He never answered. He learned early on that words weigh more than the car when conscience decides to appear. The makeshift flag fell. Dust rose. The Subaru sped off. Each curve was a wrong decision made too quickly. Each skid, a reminder that control was just a beautiful illusion. The car danced at the limit, tires screeching against the ground, stones flying like projectiles. At 240, 260, 280 kilometers per hour, that's where he felt whole. Because when he accelerated, he didn't think about the empty house. He didn't think about the brother who never returned from that same road. He didn't think about the promise made to someone who believed he would stop. The speed silenced everything. But then something strange happened. In the middle of a long straight, when the speedometer passed 300, he felt it. He didn't hear it. He felt it, as if someone had just sat down next to him. The passenger seat sank slightly. The air inside the car changed. It became heavy, dense, like before a storm. "Finally," said a calm voice, too close. "I thought you'd never accelerate enough." He didn't turn his face. Experienced drivers know. Looking away for a second can kill. Even so, a shiver ran down his spine. "You don't exist," he murmured, pressing the accelerator even harder. The laugh came low, unhurried. Everyone says that, until they realize they were never alone. The road began to change. Curves he knew by heart seemed tighter. The dust formed strange shadows. The radio died in static. None of the other cars were in sight anymore. Only him, the car, and the invisible passenger. "You drive thinking it's for victory," the voice continued. "But it's not. You drive because you're afraid to stop." The steering wheel slipped an inch. He corrected it reflexively. "Shut up. If you stop, you'll have to look at everything you left behind." The Subaru entered a curve too tight for that speed. The tires lost grip. The world turned to dust and light. For a moment, everything went into slow motion. And then he understood. The mistake was never speeding. The mistake was thinking destiny was behind him when all along it was beside him. And that race wasn't about arriving first. It was about who would survive when the road exacted its price. The car slid out, almost sideways, scraping the edge of the road as if the desert were trying to pull him into it. He countersteered instinctively, his whole body working even before thought. The Subaru responded, brutal, obedient, spitting out dirt and stones as it returned to the correct line by centimeters. "Nice correction," commented the passenger, as if evaluating an old trick. "Who did you learn that from?" The name came to mind before he could stop it. A name buried too deep. "Don't talk about him." "Funny." The voice sounded closer. "They're always the ones who teach you how to race. And they're always the ones who get left behind." The radio came back for a second. Voices appeared and disappeared in static, like ghosts trapped on the wrong frequency. "Attention, attention, gorge curve, someone fell, silence. His heart pounded. That curve didn't forgive mistakes. It never had. It was there that everything began years ago. It was there that the road took more than one car. You could have stopped after that, said the passenger. You could have left. Ordinary life. Name. Clean. But he chose to run. I needed to keep going, he replied, through clenched teeth. Someone had to win. The laugh came low, almost compassionate. No, someone needed to stay. The headlights illuminated something unexpected. An overturned car ahead, still smoking, wheels spinning in the void. One of the racers. One of his brothers on the road. He slowed down instinctively, his foot trembling on the brake. Don't do that, said the voice, now harsh. If you stop, you lose the race. He hesitated, and it was in that second that he understood the true test. In those races, it wasn't speed that separated the living from the dead. It was choice. He pulled the handbrake, threw the car aside, and stopped. Dust engulfed everything. He jumped out of the Subaru and ran to the overturned car. Inside, a young man was bleeding, conscious, frightened. I thought no one was going to stop, murmured the wounded man. On the road, you don't abandon your own, he replied, pulling him out with effort. When he returned to the driver's seat, the passenger was still there, silent. Do you know what you just did? The voice asked without anger. You chose people over victory. He took a deep breath, starting the engine again. Maybe that's why I'm still here. The road opened up again ahead. The other cars reappeared distant. The race continued, but something had changed. Most people race to escape, said the passenger. You race for too long thinking you were alone. But family isn't who arrives first. It's who stops when everyone else accelerates. The Subaru sped off again, no longer desperate but resolute. For the first time, he wasn't racing to forget. He was racing to belong. And destiny, in the passenger's seat, merely observed, knowing that that night would still exact its price. Night was falling, and with it the feeling that the road was no longer just dirt, stone, and dust. Something invisible was running alongside, something that didn't need an engine to keep up at 280 miles per hour. The Subaru traversed a series of tight curves like a wounded animal that still refuses to fall. Each gear change was accompanied by memories he swore he had buried. The smell of burnt oil, the scream on the radio, the silence after the impact. You remember the exact moment, said the passenger, breaking the trance. That second before the collision, when you thought, if I get past this curve, everything changes. His hands gripped the steering wheel. I just wanted to win. Lies, his voice lowered. You wanted the pain to stop. The road opened up into a straight, long, almost provocative stretch. He floored it. The speedometer climbed too fast, 240, 260, 280. The world became a tunnel. The wind howled. The suspension slammed shut. The car begged for limits he wouldn't give. It was here, the passenger continued. Here you made the pact. He swallowed hard. There were no words that night. No blood, no signature. Just a thought thrown into the void, quick as a desperate prayer. If I win this race, you can take whatever you want. The Subaru hit 300. You won, the voice said, and I've been sitting next to you ever since. The steering wheel vibrated violently. The car almost went off the track when a gust of wind kicked up a wall of dust. For a second, he saw nothing. He only felt. So that's it, he shouted. You're coming to get me now? The passenger turned slowly. For the first time, he felt the weight of that gaze. No, I came to collect something much more difficult. The dust settled. The road returned. And ahead, other cars appeared. Not rivals. Companions. Familiar faces. People broken like him, but still standing. Victory is easy, the voice continued. Glory ends quickly. But loyalty, belonging, that comes at a high price. The radio crackled again. Voices called his name. They asked for position. They asked for leadership. They trust you, said the passenger. Do you want to know the real price of the pact? His heart was pounding so hard it felt like it wanted to escape. What do you want? The answer came calmly, cruelly, and inevitably. That you decide if you're going to keep racing just for yourself, or if you're going to lose this race to save everyone else. The Subaru entered the next corner not as the fastest, but as the most aware. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of losing. Because now he knew Hell wasn't stopping. Hell was arriving alone, and Destiny, in the passenger seat, awaited the final choice. The next curve didn't appear on the maps. It wasn't marked on any GPS. It was one of those curves that only exist for those who have already run too fast trying to escape themselves. The Subaru entered the curve tearing, tires screeching against the loose dirt, the rear wanting to escape. He felt the car too light, as if for a moment it didn't touch the ground. It was there that many disappeared. It was there that the road demanded old promises. "Slow down," said the passenger, for the first time without irony. "There's still time." He didn't answer. He only adjusted the trajectory, keeping the car on the exact edge between control and chaos. Behind him, the others followed, trusting blindly. On the radio, a familiar voice trembled. "Leader, some people are pushing too hard. This curve is deadly." "Hold on," he replied firmly. "Follow my line." The passenger watched him with unusual attention. "Funny," he murmured. "Before, you would have floored it. Now, you're protecting them. They are my responsibility." "No," the voice corrected. "They are your family." The word weighed more than any curve. Family. Something he never thought he had after that night. Something born in the dust, in makeshift repairs, in shared defeats. The car in front skidded. A tiny mistake. One more second on the accelerator. The impact was inevitable. Metal against stone. The dry sound echoed through the ravine. "Damn it," he yelled, pulling the handbrake. "If you stop now, it's over," said the passenger, more seriously. "The race is over. The pact is broken." He took a deep breath, his heart at war with itself. Then let it end. He turned the steering wheel and stopped again. He got out running, ignoring horns, shouts, the invisible stopwatch. He helped pull the driver from the wrecked car. Blood, dust, shortness of breath. "Why did you come back?" asked the injured man, dazed. "Because nobody gets left behind." When he returned to the Subaru, something was different. The passenger seat seemed empty. For a second, the silence was absolute. Then the voice emerged, no longer beside him, but within him. "You're breaking the agreement." "Maybe," he replied, starting the engine. "But I'm doing the right thing." The other cars lined up behind him. There was no rush now. There was no competition. Just the road, the dust, and a group following someone who had decided to truly lead. "Do you know what happens to those who break pacts?" asked the distant voice. "They discover who they really are." The Subaru moved forward, slower, stronger. Victory no longer mattered. Time didn't matter. Hell no longer frightened him, because he understood, late but fully, destiny isn't conquered by speeding. It's conquered by staying. And on that dirt road, under a heavy sky, the pact began to crumble, not from weakness, but from courage. The road narrowed as the night progressed. The sides closed in on stone walls, and the sky seemed too heavy for that stretch of desert. There was no more room for error, nor for escape. The Subaru moved forward steadily, without haste. The engine still had the power to roar, but he didn't ask for it. For the first time in years, he didn't feel urgency. He felt presence. The other cars followed closely behind, maintaining a safe distance, copying every line, every subtle correction in the steering wheel. "You noticed, didn't you?" The voice rose within him, without echo, without irony. "When you stopped racing against time, time stopped chasing you." He kept his eyes on the road. "Then why do I still feel you here?" "Because pacts don't end when someone slows down. They end when someone accepts the cost." The radio crackled. One of the voices sounded desperate. "Leader, we're running out of fuel. If this continues, we won't make it." He looked at the fuel gauge. His was low too. This race had always been planned for those who would floor it until the end. No one thought about coming back in one piece. "Pull over when you need to," he replied. "We'll figure it out together." The passenger, or whatever it was silent for a few seconds. When he returned, the voice was different. Less control, more truth. "You know you can't save everyone." "I know, and yet you'll try." "Yes." The road made the final trap appear without warning. A straight stretch too long, too tempting. The kind of stretch where the car begs to be released, where the speedometer calls louder than conscience. His foot trembled. 300 were still there, waiting. "If you accelerate now," said the voice almost softly. You'll finish ahead. You'll emerge from this as a legend. They'll understand. He closed his eyes for half a second. He saw his brother, the empty house, the nights running by without knowing where to go. He opened his eyes. He took his foot off the gas. The Subaru continued steadily, restrained. Behind him, a car stayed. Then another. 4 stops. People getting out, helping, pushing, sharing what little remained. The race died there. Not with impact, with decision. So that's it, said the voice, now distant. You chose to stay. No, he replied. I chose not to run anymore. The passenger seat felt light. Empty. Not physically, but in the weight it carried. Destiny didn't leave the car. It just stopped driving. When the sun began to rise on the horizon, there were no official winners. There was no stopwatch. Only people sitting in the dust, exhausted, alive. He leaned against the hot hood and took a deep breath. The road was still there. But, for the first time, it asked for nothing in return. The dawn didn't bring immediate relief. The light revealed what the night had hidden. Marked cars, tires, torn, hands dirty with dust, and eyes too empty for someone still breathing. The race was over, but no one celebrated. Because now came the hardest part, understanding what it all meant. He walked between the stopped vehicles like someone revisiting a battlefield after a ceasefire. There were no sirens, no applause, only the sound of the wind crossing the ravine, carrying the smell of fuel and hot earth. Some looked at him with respect, others with contained anger. If we had accelerated, murmured one of them, sitting on the ground, hands on his face, we would have won. He stopped in front of the man. And who would be missing here now? Silence. The answer was scattered along the road in memories that no one wanted to name. Friends who didn't make it to other races. Names scratched off old trophies. Promises made too quickly, fulfilled too late. He returned to the Subaru. He opened the passenger door. Empty. No presence. No pressure. No voice offering shortcuts that cost too much. But the absence weighed more than anything. Because now there was no one to blame. The radio crackled again. A weak frequency, almost lost. Central reported the race was officially canceled. No winner. No placings. Some cursed. Others laughed, a short, nervous laugh. He hung up. Destiny hadn't taken anything that day. But it hadn't given anything back either. It only showed the bill that would come later. Slow, silent, inevitable. Hours later, when the support trucks arrived, no one talked about the race. They talked about life outside of it. Children, debts, postponed plans, paths that didn't require 300 miles per hour to prove their worth. Before getting into the truck, he looked at the road one last time. For a moment, just one, he felt the urge to accelerate, to feel the engine roar, to remember who he was when he raced without thinking. But he also remembered the empty seat. And he kept going, because some choices don't change the world. They change who you are when the world stops racing. Days later, far from the dust and the noise of the engines, the silence began to take its toll. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was heavy, the kind that creeps in through the window at night and sits on the edge of the bed without asking permission. He tried to return to his routine. Smaller jobs, legal races, roads that were too predictable. But something had changed. The steering wheel felt heavier. The accelerator, less inviting. As if the car knew that this story wasn't over yet. It was on a secondary road, almost forgotten on the map, that everything returned. The sky was low gray. The damp earth clung to the tires. An informal race. Few people. No real glory. Just enough money to justify the risk. When he got into the car, he felt it again. The passenger seat wasn't empty. There was no defined shape. No clear voice. It was an old, patient presence. The same feeling as before, but now without haste. Like someone who knows that time is working in their favor. I thought it was over, he murmured without taking his eyes off the road. The engine responded before anything else, revving up on its own, as if it had heard. The race began. He accelerated, but not like before. Each curve was accompanied by memories. Wrong decisions, empty victories, faces left behind. The road seemed to narrow on purpose, pushing him towards choices that were too quick. On the 5th curve, the car almost went off the road. He corrected at the limit. His heart raced. Do you still want to race? The presence seemed to ask without words. I just want to finish, he replied, through clenched teeth. On the longest straight, the speed increased dangerously. The number on the dashboard was approaching the limit he had sworn he would never reach again. The old impulse returned, seductive, promising absolute control for a few seconds. It was there that he always used to give in. But this time he lifted his foot off the gas. The car lost positions. Others passed roaring, hungry for victory. He was left behind, swallowing dust and booze. When he crossed the finish line, there were no applause. Not enough money. Not immediate respect. But the passenger seat was empty again. For the first time, the absence didn't hurt. Because now he understood, destiny doesn't demand speed. It demands awareness. It only sits beside you when it realizes you haven't learned yet. And that night, for the first time in a long time, he got out of the car hole. Time passed strangely after that race. Not fast, not slow, just different. As if life had shifted gears without warning. He continued driving, but now he avoided big races, famous names, roads that demanded more than his body could handle without breaking something inside. That's how he began to notice others. Broken people, like he once had been. Young drivers too fast with eyes full of that. A hunger that cannot be satisfied with trophies. They looked at him like someone looking into a mirror of the future, unsure if they liked the reflection. You've already driven at 300, one of them said one night around an improvised campfire in the middle of the desert. They say nobody comes back the same after that. He hesitated to answer. You do, he finally said. You just don't come back whole if you insist. Some laughed. Others remained silent. The road taught better than words, but sometimes someone needed to point out the potholes. One cold dawn, he took the wheel of a car that wasn't his. The driver was too nervous. His hands trembled. Ambition screamed loudly. Take me, the boy pleaded, just until I learn. The road was treacherous. Blind curves, stretches of mud, enough speed to kill someone if ego took control. He drove with precision, without spectacle, without haste. Each movement calculated as if protecting something fragile. In the passenger seat, for the first time, he felt something different. It wasn't destiny. It was responsibility. They reached the end without a scratch. The boy got out of the car, silently, breathing deeply, like someone who realizes he's still alive by choice, not by luck. Thank you, he said, his voice faltering. He nodded. That night, alone again, he looked at the Subaru parked under the starry sky. The car carried scars, just like him, but now they no longer needed to be hidden. Destiny never sat beside him again, perhaps because it no longer needed to. Perhaps because he had learned that no one runs to escape what they feel. They run to find it. And when they find it, speed ceases to be the goal. The road continues. But now, he is no longer lost on it. The message arrived without a name, without a known number. Only coordinates. A lost spot on the map, where the asphalt ended and the dirt began to tell truths no one wanted to hear. He recognized the place even before seeing it. It had been one of the first big races. It had been there that he learned that speed could silence guilt for a while. The Subaru roared as the engine started, as if it too remembered. The road was empty. No spectators. No visible opponents. Only the heavy sky and the wind dragging old dust. It was the kind of race that didn't appear in videos. It didn't bring fame. It only exacted a price. As he drove forward, memories surfaced around the curves. Shouts muffled by the engine noise. Promises made on hot nights. An accident that no one took responsibility for. A name he avoided remembering. Halfway through the journey, the radio crackled. You took your time. The voice was familiar. Too old to be forgotten. I thought it was over, he replied, keeping the car steady. It's over for those who learned, not for someone who only slowed down. The passenger seat wasn't empty this time. The presence was clearer, heavier. It didn't press. It observed, like a judge who already knows the verdict. The road narrowed. The speed increased without him noticing. Each curve demanded an immediate decision. Brake and lose control, or accelerate and be overconfident. This is where you always chose wrong, the voice said. He felt the old impulse grow. The desire to prove something. To whom? He no longer knew. On the sharpest curve, he saw the old mark on the ground, the exact spot where everything had gone wrong years ago. This time, he didn't accelerate. He braked hard. The car skidded, almost went off the road. His heart raced. For a second, everything seemed lost. But he held on. When the Subaru stopped, a heavy silence fell. He breathed heavily. His hands trembled. "Was that it?" he asked. "Bringing me here just to remind me?" The presence took a while to respond. "No," to see if he still needed to run away. The passenger seat was empty. There was no applause. There was no finish line, just a road behind him and another clean one ahead. He engaged the gear and continued. The sun was beginning to rise when he left that road behind. The light pierced the dust suspended in the air, transforming tire tracks into golden lines that slowly disappeared. There was no sign, no record, as if that stretch had never existed, and perhaps never should have. The Subaru continued steadily. Not fast, not slow, at the right pace. For the first time, he felt no rush to get anywhere. Each kilometer traveled was a silent agreement with himself. A different pack from the one made years ago, when he believed that winning meant surviving. He stopped at an improvised lookout point. He turned off the engine. The silence was not a threat. It was rest. He thought of all those who had passed by on that road, believing that speed would fix what was broken inside. Some returned. Others stayed behind. He carried a little of them all, not as a burden, but as a memory. He picked up the portable radio. He adjusted the frequency. He didn't expect a response. "If anyone is listening," he began, his voice low. "Don't confuse this with a journey with escape. The road gives everything back, sooner or later." He hung up. When he returned to the car, he noticed something simple, almost banal. The passenger seat was clean. No marks, no shadows, just space. And in that space, he understood. Destiny never wanted control of the steering wheel. It only wanted to know if, when the time came, he would have the courage to choose to remain whole, even if it cost him victory. As he resumed his journey, he passed other cars, some too fast, others cautious. He no longer judged. Each was settling its own accounts. Further on, a boy signaled for help. The car was broken. The same hungry look he already knew. He stopped. "Are you going to race today?" the boy asked. He thought for a second. "No, I'll arrive today." And that was all. The Subaru drove on, disappearing down the dirt road as the day truly began. There was no trophy, no headline, but there was something too rare to be measured in kilometers per hour. Peace. Because in the end, he learned it wasn't about winning the race. It was about surviving himself.